about my new monograph, which is called Midgetism, the Exploitation and Discrimination of People with Dwarfism. Now, first and foremost, I want to say I hate the word midget. Okay, it's an extremely offensive term, one that I've been working to try and get abolished in various places. So people go, well, why are you using it now? I'm using it in an academic sense, and I'm using it to explore various discriminatory attitudes and practices that lead to the unequal standing of people with dwarfism in society. Attitudes that everybody is used to, that's so normal in society, but really impact how people with dwarfism are treated. And so I want to make that distinction first. I'm a person with dwarfism. That is a condition. Midget, it's never been a condition. It's always been used as a cultural term to denounce people with dwarfism, the oppression they experience, so it's popularised in that freak show. And that's where it still resides in modern day freaks. Okay, so I will try and explain that bit. So, as David said, it's part of the Autocritical Discourse series, Disability Studies series, sorry. In it, I engage with the tripartite model of disability, which is again from David Bolt. And this is to give a nuanced sort of analysis of representations and attitudes. And I also introduced several new terms or concepts, that, including the term midgetism, which explains any sort of discrimination people with dwarfism experience. Midget entertainer, so that's a repurposing of the term midget, because I want to make a distinction between people with dwarfism and people with dwarfism who choose to humiliate themselves, basically, and create discrimination for the rest of us. But also this concept of the non-normate space, which can be applied to places like freak shows or even associations for people with dwarfism. I might get onto that if I've got time, but it's just because it's from like a geographical perspective. Okay, so I'm reclaiming this term midget for advocacy purposes, basically, and activism, and academic purposes. So it's a combination, I suppose, of heightism and disablism. So a lot of the time when there's unique prejudices that people with dwarfism experience, for example, being hired out for birthday parties, being hired out for baby showers, where dwarfism is seen as more of a novelty than a disability. It's a funny creature, basically. Okay, it's dehumanized, it's something you can play with. And so in the image behind me, there is called Little Yet Large Dwarf Hire. So this is where you go to hire out dwarfs. This is one of the many places you can go to hire out dwarfs, and I'm not advertising it. But as you can see, there are several midget entertainers dressed up as Oompa Loompas, and they're doing what I've just sort of referred to as like the midget pose. They've got jazz hands, they're smiling broadly because they're just funny and they want you to be entertained by them. Okay, so this is why I'm repurposing this term midget entertainer. They partake in stuff that would be off limits to anyone else. Okay, try hiring out a wheelchair user. Try hiring out any other minority group in that same way. Okay, I've actually seen this because they on websites they say it's not degrading. Our midget entertainers love it. So and they said, you know, it gives them a job. So I actually used my personal email address, so they didn't know who I was, and said, well, you know, if it's so great and it gives them a job, do you do it with any other disabled people? And I'm still waiting for their response. Okay, not that I want to hire anyone out or give them any ideas even. So I'm repurposing those, and so it's not to be applied to a person, it's to be applied to a practice. Okay, anything that creates this. Now, like I said, it's a combination with heightism. And because what we experience is not heightism, because I usually, when I'm trying to expose this discrimination, like getting rid of the word midget or something, I usually get people who are short, maybe a foot taller than me, so I think they're tall actually, trying to act as the authoritative voice on dwarfism. Well, I'm 5 foot, so I know what it's like to be a dwarf. And it's like, well, how much did you pay for your pedal extensions? And they soon shut up. Okay, how many times has somebody stopped to take photos of you? No? Okay. And so it's like the authority here is people with dwarfism. This is midgetism. People who have a disability or who are just short cannot speak about these experiences. Okay, so I want to show how midgetism is got its roots really in the freak show. Okay, you know, there were problematic representations before this, but really this is where dwarfism was sort of put on show you know, as well as any other, like quite a few other disabled people, certain types of disabilities, as well as ethnic minorities, to be exploited because they had non-normative bodies. And I argue that this freak, it's always culturally produced, as Bogdan says. So it's not, you don't have a self-made freak and a born freak. All freaks are self-made. Okay, just because you've been born with a certain condition doesn't mean you're a freak until you decide to exploit that. Okay, so even though freak shows started to die down at the turn of the 20th century, midget entertainment flourished. Okay, because we still see it, it's fine, they enjoy it. Okay, so one of the ones that I look at in this book is the Kingdom of Little People in China. It's a theme park, but it doesn't have roller coasters or anything like that. It's populated by midget entertainers. And of course, it's run by an average-sized man who profits from that, just like P.T. Barnum did in the 18th, 19th century. And so basically in that image you can see them, it's like a fantasy land. It's like this fantasy land, these like little houses with turrets and all that, look like something out of mythology. And it's just populated by dwarves that'll dance for you, or midget entertainers, sorry. And basically this reflects like sort of Norse mythology where dwarves are depicted as a separate race living in a fantasy land away from the normal people. And you can still see this evident in films such as like Willy Wonka, Wizard of Oz, and of course Snow White, and Willow, of course, where we are seen as we're not part of society. So this is Kingdom of Little People, and you can go to it, and you can pick up dwarves, and you can take photos of dwarves. And again, they say it's because they face discrimination. Well, lots of other disabled people face discrimination, but you don't put them in a fantasy land, and nor should you. Okay, so I explore some of these consequences of midget entertainment, including the impact, you know, the main impact it has on people with dwarfism. One of the things is people stop to take photos of you. Okay, so it's not enough just to stare at a dwarf. Now with smartphones, people stop cars, people, you know, they take photos and they put them on social media groups like Facebook, in groups such as I Hate Midgets or Aren't Midgets Funny, and apparently this does not go against Facebook's community standards. But there again, we know how low their standards are. Okay, and so those are the kind of things that happen. And go, yeah, look, I spotted a midget, isn't it funny? Oh, you need to get out more. So then I look at this modern day freak show, midget wrestling. So in 2018, now midget wrestling is mainly in the US, but in 2018 they decided to come over to the UK. And again, I was told by people that don't have dwarfism that it's not offensive, it's fun. I was like, okay. And so what it is, like, as you know, probably know if you're familiar with wrestling, it's a form of sports entertainment. So that's how it differs from regular sports like running, rugby, football. It's fake. I'm sorry to break that to anyone here, okay? People don't really get hit with steel chairs. But what you do have there, you have these big, beyond average sized men, big muscular men, so it's a lot of machoism in it. But then along come these midget entertainers, these midget wrestlers. And of course that creates this incongruous encounter because they don't belong there, but also this superiority because even the audiences know that the midget wrestlers won't stand a chance against them. Now in wrestling there's a lot of performances, you know, a lot of backroom performances, you know, against wrestlers. And the midget wrestlers always do stuff that would always be off limits to the other wrestlers. Like for example, running into the ring and biting the backside of the referee. Okay, I've never seen Hulk Hogan do that. Okay. The other thing is, between two wrestlers, there is one, they always have a mini version of the other wrestler, like a pet. Okay, it's always like your pet. That's what a midget entertainer is. It's someone's pet, someone's unruly dog. Because in one scene, it pans out from this wrestler, and one of the mini wrestlers, or midget wrestlers, is dry humping his leg. Again, that's not something I've seen the Ultimate Warrior or the Undertaker do, but it's okay because a midget is not human. He's more like your pet chihuahua, okay, that you just knock off, spray with water, get rid of it. And so as Mark Seeley, aka Little Legs, because they always have this term, you know, they've always got to be called little, small, whatever, he says, I don't do that, I just do the comedy stuff. I don't need to pick up a 6-foot bloke. No, Mark, you cannot pick up a 6-foot bloke, okay? Let's not think that you're that tough or strong. You cannot pick up a 6-foot bloke. So here we're exposing that they're incapable of doing that. Now that's not to say that Somebody with dwarfism can't do weightlifting or anything, there's plenty that do, but let's be realistic, you cannot pick up this man. So that's why they have to do a lot of this comedy stuff. And people go there to laugh at them, okay? And so we tried to get that stopped, but of course they were saying, oh, but it's a job for them. If we stop it, one of them's going to lose their house. No, you're going to lose out financially, okay? The average size promoter is going to lose out financially. And as one of the promoters says, I'm more interesting when I'm surrounded by 14 midgets. Well, you're a very boring bloke, I'm sorry to tell you. Okay. And then, this is one of the excuses that really grinds me. It's a job for them. All right, so we're incapable of doing anything else. We can't be doctors, we can't be lawyers, we can't be teachers, okay? I can't be an academic, okay? We've got to be this humiliating form of entertainment. And so I open it up by talking about job discrimination, employment discrimination. And it's funny, when I've been discriminated from jobs, and when other people with dwarfism have been discriminated from jobs, nobody gets your corner, nobody fights your corner to say, oh, but it's a job for them. When it comes down to things like dwarf tossing and all, midget tossing, it's like, but it's a job for them. No. Let's not pretend we're all about disability equality here. What you're saying is, I like to laugh at them. I like to feel superior to them. That's why it's a job. Okay? And one lawyer tried to defend it and said, well, it's all about their height. They're using their height to their advantage, like basketball players do. Well, no, because basketball players are showing skill. A midget is being used as the target, as the ball, as the dart. Okay, again, being used as a commodity to be dehumanized. Big difference. So in that image there, I'm showing a midget being tossed. He's wearing a helmet, a Superman t-shirt, and behind him is a bunch of tossers, basically. It's the only way to describe them. But then we come to this thing, it's just a joke. All right, it's just a joke. Well, if you look at the superiority theory of humour, it's not just a joke because it has social consequences. Now the image there is of a pantomime, and it's 7 dwarfs, and front and centre, as he always is Warwick Davis, patron, yeah, you know I love him, patron of LP UK, which says that they promote a positive representation of dwarfism. He's in a costume there, in a bright colourful costume, again doing the dwarf pose with his jazz hands and a big smile. You know, we are there to be laughed at. It's so positive that people can't help but ask other dwarfs, where's your 6 little friends? Are you happy? Are you grumpy? All the time, because it's just a joke. But this is constant in society. Okay, so it's this superiority that we are always degraded to make people feel better. And this is where that heightism comes out, because being bigger is better. You walk tall, you know, and you're not small-minded. So I then look at some of these excuses, and one of the things I look at is the case of Quaden Bale. So you might remember it from a few years ago. A little Australian boy with dwarfism. His mother filmed him crying because he wanted to kill himself. He was only about 7 or something at the time, and he wanted to kill himself. And I'm sorry to say, that is not a unique experience amongst people with dwarfism. I know we always go around as happy little beings, but actually, there are high cases of suicide amongst people with dwarfism, because anybody who has to be abused day in, day out is going to find this. So, one of the things that is with Quaden Bales is Hugh Jackman was like, oh, poor Quaden, you know, you're great, you're great. Hugh Jackman played P.T. Barnum in The Great Showman, where we were all encouraged that, look, the freaks love being stared at. Okay, you're not helping, Hugh. Okay? Thank you, I know. Right, so the last one, in these 2 minutes, is fighting midgetism. How do we fight it? Well, we need allies. And in these associations for people with dwarfism, unfortunately, they're mostly dominated by average-sized parents who, again, tell us what it's like to be a dwarf. And who tell us, well, and these pages are just, you know, full of parents with dwarfism, full of average-sized parents going, my child's lactose intolerant, what's that got to do with dwarfism? Please tell me. And it's like, nothing, okay? And, oh, well, you know, I don't want to hear about this, you know, these campaigns or anything because it upsets me. Well, you know what, the experiences upset me. So we're always shouted down and told, you know, we're undervalued and undermined. That's what a lot of people dwarfism say at these places, because the ableism comes into them. Because the dominant voice, and as they would say, is that they tell us what it's like. They challenge our own experiences and beliefs. So I do individual activism because I don't see the point in trying to, you know, get people that have gotten such internalized ableism. But that's the only way forward. And so a lot of these groups now have become for people with dwarfism only, because that's the only way we can have that voice. Okay, thank you.